Hey there, my name is Madison White. I am a life activation practitioner, certified healer, second step ritual master with the Modern Mystery School in the lineage of King Solomon. And this is the first episode of oh my gosh, the cat is crawling. Oh my god. This is the first episode. Oh my god, Guinevere, come here. You guys are gonna meet her probably eventually anyway. Oh, Guinevere, come here. Okay, this is the first episode, welcome, of my podcast slash YouTube video, radio show thing, whatever. I wasn't even really actually planning on doing this today. I was in the car on my way to go do something else, and then very promptly that fell through, and I was like, well, what am I going to do today? And I looked at my phone and my email, and my microphone, my brand new microphone had arrived, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll start that podcast today. And then very fittingly right afterwards on my Facebook scroll feed was that video from Shia LaBeouf where he's like, just do it. And I was like, yeah, okay, all right, picking up what you're putting down, okay? Full moon, Libra, full moon, I hear you, hear what you're saying. So yeah, so here I am. This is me, this is my voice, this is my channel, this is what I'm saying to you all. Guinevere is my cat. She may be popping in and out as she sees fit. So, world, Guinevere, world. So, I mean, the first episode, my first time talking to you guys, I really just wanted to kind of introduce myself and tell my story and talk about who I am and how I got to be here. Oh, see her? If you're watching video, she just popped in the background. You'll have to watch the YouTube channel if you actually want to meet Guinevere. But, so yeah, so who am I and where did I come from and how did I get here? So, I was like, I don't need any prep. I don't need prep for that. I can just start talking about myself. So I live in Boston. I live just north of Boston. Grew up here my whole life. My family is very close by. Everyone kind of lives in the same town and has never really left. Let's see. I mean, I went to nursing school. I'm a registered nurse. I from a young age knew that I wanted to help people. I knew that a lot of people seemed to be in really tough situations, and I wanted to be able to help them. And originally I wanted to be a doctor, and the high school guidance counselor's office, and I was like, yeah, but I don't really want to spend all that money or all that time in school. And she was like, yeah, that's probably not a good, she looked at my grades. She's like, yeah, that's probably not a great idea. Why don't you be a nurse? That's not as much school, not as much money. You could probably do that. And I was like, all right, fine. Yeah, I'll do that. Sure. So I went to nursing school, and even by the time I was in high school, in high school I was a very angry child. There was a lot of disciplinary action taken upon myself. I went to a private school. I went to Catholic school. There was a lot of rules. There was a lot of dress code. I could not follow the dress code for the life of me. God bless. So there was a lot, there was a lot of issues. There was issues with self-harm, which was really just, in hindsight, it was really just the world felt very numb, and I was looking for a way to feel. And by harming myself, it was like validation of like, you are a real person. You have real emotions. Even if the world doesn't validate you, you can validate yourself. So there was also a lot of partying down in my high school years that I didn't really carry into my college years because I went to an accelerated bachelor's program and there was no time. There was absolutely no time. I also had a boyfriend and I went home to him every weekend. There was really not a lot of, of those partying college years that sometimes I feel like I missed out on, but then again, I remember that I did a lot of that in high school and I probably didn't need to do much more at that point. So I had a rough time in college academically as well. I think I just really didn't want to be a nurse, to be honest with you. I was like in this program and knew pretty quickly that I didn't want to be there, but dropping out didn't seem like an option. And I have this character trait where once I do something, I have to finish it, even just for the sake of finishing. It's something that's kind of bit me in the butt a couple times. And if somebody tells me that I can't do something, goddamn, I'm going to do it. So just to prove them wrong. I think I get that from my dad. So, there was like a whole mess of drama where my GPA wasn't high enough, so I had to retake some classes and didn't show up. There was tardy issues with being tardy. So I ended up having to take a year off. And in that year off, I got my first tattoo. I started growing dreadlocks. I started dating this guy who was the lead singer of a band, and it was rock and roll, and it was exciting. And came back to school, but definitely with this hardened edge of like, fuck you guys kicked me out. And one of the professors actually told me that maybe I should consider an associate's degree because maybe I didn't have the brain for a bachelor's degree in nursing, so thanks for that support. But I finished, I got through. I did it. I passed my licensure exam and I started working. I started working out in the world and I was like, oh, good, I'm not in school anymore. This is only going to get better, right? It did not get better. I did not like my job. One of the first jobs that I had was working in a psych hospital, and I was on an inpatient eating disorder unit. And at this time, I had gotten very much involved with burlesque. I was also a burlesque dancer and was performing all the time and, still dating that guy, the rock and roll star. And we were living this very glamorous rock and roll, maybe not so glamorous, but sometimes it felt glamorous. Definitely that power couple, partying every weekend and just really living up the early 20s years. And, but I think on the inside, things were feeling very empty. I was very much, my job, there was so much I didn't like about my job. I didn't like, mostly, it was nothing about, the people that I worked with or anything. It was the care that we were giving. I remember there was this one day, so these are girls and women with eating disorders, who are inpatient, and a lot of them have tubes so that we can be feeding them. And there was this moment where I realized that you use these 60 ml syringes to feed, to administer feed to these women, and it's roughly about the size and shape of a penis. And a lot of these women and these girls have a history that is riddled with sexual abuse. I think just about everybody, sexuality is so distorted in our society now. I think everyone has some sort of sexual abuse. Everyone has been abused by the sexual distortions that we have in our culture. But, and I realized, I was like, okay, so I'm coming to this girl and I'm force feeding her food, something that she does not want. Whether it's, a brain disorder or not, she doesn't want it, and I'm forcing it on her with this thing that she has been violated with in the past. This is just re-traumatizing over and over again. And I remember I brought it up to one of the pediatricians, one of the doctors who was psychiatric pediatricians on the floor, and she was like, oh, huh, I never really thought about that. Maybe we should reconsider. And that was like an aha moment for me, because I was like, am I the only one thinking of this all the way through? Am I the only one seeing the whole picture here and connecting A to B? Really? No one else here picks up on stuff like this? And that just made me feel really angry, because I was still dealing with a lot of issues with my self-confidence and feeling, even back in that moment where the professor was like, maybe you're an associate's degree nurse. That really got into me, and having to retake classes, I really didn't feel like I was someone whose opinion really mattered. I was a novice nurse in my first year out of nursing school, and it was really frustrating. And I really didn't like the situation. It really went against a lot of my heart and my soul. And another thing that you are taught in nursing school is to sort of put on that face, to put on that mask of not having any emotion and not getting emotionally tied to your clients, because it was unprofessional. I got written up for giving hugs in the hallway at work because you're not allowed to do that. It was really hard for me. In hindsight now, I realize that I was empathic. I was I mean, not even empathic. I was just a human. I had humanity. I connected on a human level with my patients and didn't understand how you could be providing care, how you could care for someone without having that emotional connection, because it's spirit, it's emotion, it's energy, it's a human life. You know, how do you not feel for that? How do you not connect with that? So I ended up at that time when I was working at that at the psych hospital. I got very, very, very sick. I was also, you know, I was probably a good 20 pounds less than what I am now. I was like 112, 115 pounds at that time. I'm 5'6". You know, I was a skeleton. I was doing a lot of drugs, smoking marijuana on a daily basis, drinking beer, hard alcohol on the weekends, beer on a daily basis, doing heavy drugs almost every weekend, performing almost every weekend, or being at my boyfriend's shows every weekend, not getting enough sleep, not eating well. I was very unhealthy. I was in a very unhealthy state in my life, so I was very vulnerable. And one winter I got very, very, very sick, and I was in bed, unable to walk, just sort of writhing in pain for, it felt like a month. It might have been less, but that's what it felt like. It felt like a good month in bed, just in enormous amounts of pain. And God bless my sister who took care of me at that time, because I didn't know who else to call. She gave up her bed for me and slept on the floor so that I could get better. So I did. I got better. My relationship ended. It had ended prior to that, but were off and on. But it really ended a little bit after that, and I was totally. I was better physically. You know, my health had returned, but something inside me was broken, very, very much broken. Everything that I had built my life on knowing and being was gone. It was just, everything was gone. And I did not feel whole. I did not feel anything, really. I was just kind of like, what now? Where do I go from here? And I had never looked into spirituality. I'd never looked into spiritual healing, energy healing, crystal healing, none of that stuff. I was raised atheist, educated as a scientist, you know. Even though I knew that there was a bigger picture that people weren't missing, I didn't know at the time that it was spirituality or that it was energy or anything like that. But I was at a point in my life that I was ready to try anything. And I knew that from being a nurse and from working in a hospital, especially a psych hospital, that psychiatric care was not going to do it for me. I had also been in therapy many times in my life and didn't feel like it did anything. So I searched for energy healing, and I found a guide who was trained with the Modern Mystery School in the lineage of King Solomon, and sounded pretty legit to me. It was called like Advanced Spiritual Healing and Training, and I was like, yeah, that sounds, that's probably pretty good. So I went and met with the guide there, and the teacher and healer and guide, and really like laid it all out on the table one night after a meditation class. Was like, this is everything that's wrong, this is everything that I hate, this is everything that I've been through, please help me, please. I have no idea what else to do if I leave here. Like, I don't know. And I think my exact words were, I want to press a reset button on life. If there's a reset button, I want to press it. You know, when you're a kid and you're like, do-over, I'd like a do-over, please. Just check, please. Thanks. Great. And a little bit of back and forth, and he mentioned universal Kabbalah. And I was like, yes, I have no idea what that is, but yes, that's exactly what I want to do. When? Can we start it right now? How do we do this? And he was like, well, you need a life activation. You need Empower Thyself initiation first. And I was like, cool, great. Now? Right now? How much is it? And I did. I got a life activation. I got a full spirit activation. I did a couple of other things, and I started the Universal Kabbalah program. And didn't really tell anyone what I was doing. I was like, I don't know what this is. We meet once a month. We meditate. There's rituals. I don't know. And it was even like a little bit into it that they were like, oh, you really need to be, taking the next steps. And I was like, no, I think this is good. I'm just going to do the Kabbalah. That's enough. It feels like enough. 10 months. Alchemy, transformation. Yeah, I think that this'll do. And, there were rituals handed down and meditations handed down. I didn't do any of them. I just showed up. I just showed up for the classes. I showed up for the study groups. And again, in hindsight, I think at the time it was like, I knew that whatever I did from that point on was going to be different anyway, so it was hard to tell, like, what's actually happening. And I got through it, and I did the whole thing. And during that time, my dad was also diagnosed. He had been getting sick without telling anyone for a few years. But actually, right when I finished, he received his diagnosis of primary progressive aphasia, which is a form of degenerative brain disease. And he was young. He was like 63 maybe at the time, 62 even. And so that was happening. And during that Kabbalah, I decided that I was, really involved with burn culture, with, Burning Man. I'd never actually been to Burning Man, but I gone to a lot of local burns, and I was involved with that general community. And I went to a regional burn in Delaware, and I met this man there who seemed to fit the bill of everything that I was looking for a man in a relationship. He was a traveler. He just traveled. He seemed very handy. He was very dependable. He seemed, to know things, And I decided that I was going to go and travel with him, that I was going to leave everything in my life behind and go and travel and live moment to moment with him. And a part of it was running away. Part of it was running away from my dad's illness. I was running away from not knowing what to do with my life. I was like, oh, you've got something going on. Let me just jump on that bandwagon, which I think happens a lot, especially with women in relationships early on. Women just tend to take on whatever. Oh, this is the music that the guy that I likes. This is the music that I like now. Oh, he dresses like this. Oh, that's how I dress now. Very impressionable to just be liked, So, yeah, that's what I was going to do. And I had slowly been dismantling everything in my life during that 10 months of the Universal Kabbalah. I'll get more into what Kabbalah is and all this kind of stuff later on. But I had been dismantling everything in my life. It had been happening anyway since I had been sick. But, I moved back in with my parents. That relationship ended. I obviously stopped working at that job, and I got a job like in a call center. I pulled out of all of the burlesque performances that I was involved in. I pulled out of all of that stuff. And I left. I left high and dry. And a lot of, my family really thought that I was out of my mind. And I was, kind of, a little bit. A lot of my friends thought that, this guy that I was with was really manipulative and was manipulating me and had, like, drugged me into, like, whatever. And what I thought was funny was that during this time I was not doing nearly as many drugs as I was doing before I got sick. But no one noticed then. It's interesting. So when you start changing and the people around you are like, what? No, why? No, don't change. So I left, and we left the morning after I finished the Universal Kabbalah program, and we were traveling. We were living out of a suitcase. We were on a scooter for part of it, traveling down the coast, not really having any place to go. And I got pregnant during it. Not intentionally at first, but then once we figured out that, oh, I think I'm pregnant, we were like, okay, we'll just roll with this. And then I think the pregnancy hormones started kicking in, and I was like, okay, wait a second, we need a house, we need some stability, we need some structure. If I'm going to bring a baby into the world, I'm not just going to do it willy-nilly. So we ended up in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, where some of his siblings were, and they helped us to get work. We started working on a food truck. They helped us buy a house, or bought a house for us, essentially. And we had a dog, and we were living in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, and I was pregnant. And this was my life now. I had created this. And what was interesting was that in my Kabbalah, Universal Kabbalah program, they have you, you're supposed to pick something that you want to manifest. Pick something like, what do you want? Why are you doing this? And I wanted to find home. I wanted to find a place that felt like home to me. And here I was with a home and a husband, a partner, father of my child, pregnant with a dog, a job in Texas. I had created a home. It wasn't really what I wanted, but it was a home. I had made it. And I think I realized at that point all of the magic that they were talking about in that Universal Kabbalah class, all of the magic that we had inside of us that we're just creating. Doesn't matter if you are intending to create, we're creating. We're manifesting all the time, no matter what we're doing. And the more aware you are of what you're manifesting, the more what you manifest and what you create is going to be actually what you want. So my sister, again, enter Big Sister, save the day, sends me this playlist of all of these songs that she has me listen to. And the song Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads, come on, you may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife. And you may say to yourself, how did I get here? And I was like, oh my God, yes, how did I get here? What am I doing here? This is not my life. And in that moment, I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta get home. And I actually had a moment where there was someone who was going to California, and I could have hopped on that ride and gone to California and just kept going, or I could go home. I took all the cash that we had in the house. I took a taxi to the airport. I had exactly enough money to fly home, to pay cash to buy a plane ticket home for that evening. I actually had to beg for quarters to call home to have someone come to the airport to pick me up because I wasn't going to have enough money, any money to get home. I needed someone to come to be there to pick me up. And what's funny is that it was April 1st, and my family thought it was a joke. I mean, they showed up, they were there, they were all there, but it was April 1st, and I think the first initial shock was that this was a joke, this was an April Fool's joke. So I came home and started getting my life together. My mom had kept all of my tax information, and because I had worked full-time as a nurse the year before, I filed my taxes and I got some money back, and I got my car back on the road. I got a cell phone, just started with the basics, picking myself back up. And I had a head full of dreadlocks. Oh, I miscarried also during all of this process. Miscarried that child. And yeah, I'm thankful for that lesson. A lot of people, when I say that, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I mean, it was a lesson. I didn't need that child to learn that whole lesson. So I'm thankful for the lesson that they gave, and send them back, and they can come later at another time. I had a head full of dreadlocks. I shaved my head. Started applying for nursing jobs. It was a little tough in the beginning with a shaved head. I think I slept for a long time when I came home. I think it was 4 months of high stress, and I just needed to sleep and eat. So that's what I did. Gosh, I did finally get a nursing job and started working again, and found my way back to Modern Mystery School, because at that point I was like, okay, I'm a spiritual person now. This is part of who I am. This is part of what I do. And I was like, maybe there's a way that I could combine my understanding of Western medicine with energy healing that I know of now, and really bridge these two, really bring those two together. So I was like, all right, I have an RN. I need to balance that out with some sort of more energy healing modalities. So I became a Reiki, level 2 Reiki practitioner, and started doing a couple of other things around, I'd see meditation, crystal healing, shamanic journeys, things here and there. And I was like, none of this stuff really packs the same punch. Now remember, I'm still coming from an atheist background, still coming from a very scientific mind. It's like, I need proof. This doesn't really seem to, really pack the same punch as the Modern Mystery School did. So I went back. I went back to Modern Mystery School, and I started going to a couple meditations here and there and taking some classes here and there. And then they were offering the Universal Kabbalah again. I was like, all right, my scientific mind. I was like, all right, I did this once. I know the deal. I know what it's about. I know what's going to happen. Let's try it. Let's try it again. And this way, I will have proof. I will have definitive proof. I will know, because I'll know right away. If this is just the same hoopla, whatever, blah, 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 I will know right away. But if this actually does something, then I will have substantial proof, and I will know that this is really all that they chalk it up to be. So I started the Universal Kabbalah again. And it was a few weeks in, and I was like, whoa! Something's really happening here. There was really something going on. This is not just some hoopla. Like, this is the real deal. Like, stuff is happening in my life. And then I was like, okay, all right, I'm in. I found it. I found something. Let's really start using this. Let's really start using this magic. So I did. I started really using the magic. I started doing the prayers, doing the rituals, doing the meditations, and things definitely got easier. Things started to pick up. Things started to stabilize. Things started to even out. And I went to Healers Academy, and I learned how to do life activation for myself. I went to Second Step Healers Academy and learned how to do full spirit activation, and did the warrior path, became a Second Step ritual master, and really started applying this stuff. And now where I am today is a realization that there needs to be a shift. There is already a shift happening. It's already happening. It's just whether or not you're riding the wave or if you're drowning, really, is what it comes down to. The world is changing, and there's a huge paradigm shift happening. And I know that people are aware of it, but they don't really know what it is or know what that means. And that the mystery school, the tools with the mystery school, the path with the mystery school, the path of know thyself in the lineage of King Solomon is the most real thing that I have found in the world. To provide the steps and provide the empowerment and the tools to be able to ride the wave of what's happening and not be drowning, to be one step ahead of the game and not like struggling to pick up. And that's what I want to do, and that's what I want to bring to the world. I want people to ride the wave. I want people to live in joy. I want people to be empowered. I want people to be able to the thing that I struggled with so much when I look at that then compared to now is that I saw the way that the world could be better. Like, I could see it in my brain. I was like, this could be better. We could have farms on rooftops. We could have, people could work together on things, and we could make this better. The world doesn't have to be this like really scary, stressful, terrible place. It's not supposed to be. It's not the way it's supposed to be. I can see it in my head. I can see that it could be better. How do I make this real? How do I get over my own self-confidence issues? How do I actually have an impact on the world? How do I bring what I can see in my brain down into the earth? How do I plant it? How do I grow it? How do I do that? And that's exactly what the Mystery School teaches you how to do. It teaches you how to do that for yourself, for you, for your children, for your loved ones, for the coming generations, for the animals, for everyone. So that's, a lot of what this podcast is going to be about. Align with the divine, and ways that we can do better, ways that we can bring a better world. So I think that's a pretty good intro. How do you feel? Do you feel like you know me now better than when we started? Anyway, maybe a little bit. So I have no idea how often this is going to be. I don't know. I'm just going to kind of roll with the punches. I know that I had a lot of ideas. I had a lot of stuff today. I have a lot of creativity jammed up in here that I am ready to let loose. Okay? So watch. So tune in.